Good morning and welcome to Victory is Mine with Pastor Andy Stump of Victory Christian Center in Carthage, Missouri. Start your day with a powerful message of hope, faith, and victory in Jesus Christ. Here's Pastor Andy, bringing you encouragement straight from God's Word.
Good morning. Let's go back to Romans chapter 4. We're going to start with verse 13 this morning. Paul says, "It was not through law that Abraham and his offspring received the promise that he would be heir of the world, but through the righteousness that comes by faith. For if those who live by law are heirs, faith has no value, and the promise is worthless, because law brings wrath. And where there is no law, there is no transgression." So we're noticing Paul's progression of thought here in the book of Romans. Everybody is in sin. Everybody's under the control of sin. Nobody's righteous. We need righteousness. God gives his righteousness, but he gives it by faith. And he's bringing up Abraham as the example of righteousness that comes through believing. So he goes further with his argument about Abraham and how he received righteousness by mentioning that even the promise, when God made the promise to Abraham, it was not because he was obedient to law. It was because he believed God. He simply took God at his word and believed that what God promised and what God said he would do. And so I find that very interesting. God was not even dealing with him in terms of morality. He wasn't dealing with Abraham, walk uprightly before me. Now, he does say that at one point, but he simply says, look at the stars, count them. Can you count them? You can't. Count the grains of sand on the seashore. Can't? Well, guess what? That's how many descendants you're going to have. I'm going to bless you with so many descendants, you won't be able to count them any more than you could count stars in the sky or grains of sand on the seashore. The faith that Abraham displayed that got him righteousness, that got him credited with righteousness, was simply taking God at his word concerning his future and the future of his descendants. That's how much God values faith. Another interesting statement here in these verses that we read this morning was that the law brings wrath. That is the nature of the law. And someone might ask, why does the law bring wrath? That's not true, because if you obey it, that's the point. God says, I gave my law to my people, and they were unable to keep it. And if you're unable to keep it, it will bring wrath. And as James says, if you violate one command, you violated them all. So by its nature, the law brings wrath. Paul says something similar in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and 4. It's the covenant that brought death. The covenant that brought death. The law states, if you do these things, you shall surely die. And on your own, in your own effort, not just the Jewish people, but anybody, you will violate those commands. And therefore, you shall die and you will bring wrath. And so this is a hopeless situation in trying to follow law. So, argues Paul, we have to follow our father, Abraham, who believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. Verse 16 of chapter 4, therefore the promise comes by faith, so that it may be by grace and may be guaranteed to all Abraham's offspring, not only to those who are of the law, but also to those who are of the faith of Abraham. He is the father of us all. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations. He is our father in the sight of God, in whom he believed, the God who gives life to the dead and calls things that are not as though they were. So, Paul is making this connection that just as Abraham had a promise that came by faith, we have promise. We have God's word, and our faith must be in that, because that's how the promise came to begin with. And if we exercise our faith the way our father Abraham did, we will get the results that Abraham got. And one of the things that you must have straight, it's the thing in Hebrews 11, verse 6 and 7. He who comes to God must have something set in place first. You must understand and recognize that God is faithful and he is true to his word. He exists, and he rewards those who diligently seek him. In this passage, the prerequisite for believing is recognizing who God is. He's the God who gives life to the dead and calls things that are not as though they were. And so no matter what situation you're looking at, it might be dead, and it might not even exist. But this is what God's word does. When God speaks, dead things come to life, and things that don't exist suddenly exist. Now, I believe that it is important to recognize that then if you put God's word in your mouth, you are then using the same words that gives life to the dead and calls things that are not as though they were.
Thank you for joining us on Victory is Mine. If you're looking for a church home, we'd love to welcome you to Victory Christian Center in Carthage, Missouri at 13996 Burr Oak Road. Join us this Sunday at 10 a.m. or 5:30 p.m. and experience God's love, power, and victory in your life. You can also learn more about us at vccchurch.org. Have a blessed day.